A major maintenance program on the country's busiest railway line is being fast-tracked after a warning that without it, parts of the track could turn to mud. Earlier this year, 730 reported that defects on nearly a third of the Melbourne to Sydney line had forced a blanket speed limit. Tonight, the federal government-owned Australian Rail Track Corporation reveals the radical steps it's taking to fix the track. Here's Matt Peacock.
A radical remedy for Australia's busiest train line. It's called sledding. Lifting up the entire rail and sleepers, then dragging a sled under to scrape out the mud-fouled stone ballast. Only 2 months ago, when we were in this very spot, there were workmen clearing the drainage at the side of the track. Now, as you can see, they're back with a vengeance.
What we're doing now is trying to get ahead of a mud hole developing, is to get rid of that fouled ballast from underneath those sleepers.
Australian Rail Track Corporation, or ARTC, Chief Executive John Fullerton, describing an urgently accelerated $40 million maintenance program he's now ordered for the Sydney to Melbourne rail track. It's work that's attracted Senate scrutiny after revelations last April on this program that thousands of safety faults had developed, which some experts believe could cost 10 times the ARTC's estimate, up to $500 million to fix properly.
In late March, maintenance crews were deployed along the line to address, and to quote from the 730 program, alarming safety test results. Is that accurate?
This month's accelerated works program is laying fresh ballast, which is then tamped down. It's all to get good drainage and stop mud holes from forming under the track.
We certainly did get caught out with the heavy rain that caused mud hole problems on the contaminated ballast, and we accept that, and we are now working on to fixing that problem.
Earlier this year, an unprecedented blanket speed restriction was placed on nearly a third of the intercapital line after this special monitoring car detected thousands of serious track defects. Train drivers, speaking anonymously to protect their jobs, have claimed this line deteriorated dramatically with mud holes even before the recent rains, after the ARTC botched the laying of new concrete sleepers.
I fear for my safety. I'm concerned about the situation that's developed with the track because it's unprecedented. It's never been this bad in the whole time I've been driving trains.
Safety, of course, always comes first, and that is why the ARTC has imposed speed restrictions on the affected sections of that track.
The 730 program's been refused access to the results of the test car run by the ARTC's chairman because he says they could be misinterpreted and create unnecessary concern and alarm. They certainly might create concern because our sources say there were at least 100 emergency defects, just one of which usually requires all trains to be stopped until it's fixed, and more than 1,000 of both Priority 1 and 2. Despite a promise by the Federal Transport Minister, Anthony Albanese, of transparency, that information has still yet to be made public.
No, have you asked me for that information? I stand up.
I'd like to ask you now.
I stand up at press conferences all the time. If you want information, it'll be made available.
Critics claim the ARTC has greatly worsened the mud problem after ignoring advice to use a specially renovated machine like this to lay the new sleepers on clean foundations, instead choosing to insert them from the side of the track.
The side insertion method that we did use provided us far greater access time and allowed us to complete the work a lot quicker.
But since then, mud holes and train decouplings have increased, according to the New South Wales Independent Safety Regulator.
We've noticed the number of mud holes since the concrete sleeper program has increased. We used our own data to do a correlation between the train partings and mud holes, and there is a correlation there.
Train partings can occur when you have
rough track, and we certainly did have some increases in train partings. But again, that has one of the measures that has improved over the last 3 or 4 months as this work has been completed.
So we haven't had the train splitting in two as much as they used to.
That's right.
That's marvellous.
730 first raised safety concerns about the interstate line last September, soon prompting the Federal Transport Minister Anthony Albanese to announce his department was undertaking a review, including an independent engineering assessment of the re-sleepering work.
When we receive the report, you can examine it. There'll be full scrutiny of it. We've been upfront about it.
That report by American rail engineer Darrell Cantrell has now been released. Mr Cantrell describes side insertion as common practice and praises the corporation's efforts, but he also recommends prioritising work on the track's severe fouled ballast condition, targeting in particular the Seymour to Albury track, where he warns if the work is not done soon, it could turn to mud very quickly. Ironically, it was that section of track that was closed to trains last year, yet the ARTC management still chose to leave the dirty ballast there when re-sleepering.
We made a judgment call to do that whole corridor based on the need to get the timber sleepers out, the concrete in. That method was perfectly satisfactory.
But now your consultant's warning that it could turn to mud quickly.
Look, we've known that we've got ballast problems on that western side of the track, and we will deal with that through our maintenance program.
Why didn't you deal with it when you had possession of the track, when you could have lifted the track up and fixed it?
Well, we didn't. We decided that the side insertion was the appropriate method to use.
Now the whole track has to be lifted, and whatever is underneath the sleepers excavated and then replaced with appropriate materials.
The top rail consultant for BHP Billiton's heavy iron ore trains in the Pilbara, Stephen Marrick, believes the ARTC should have properly prepared foundations for the new sleepers.
This was not done, and the penalty was paid.
Secret footage on the 730 program revealed that even the brakes on an XPT passenger train had been damaged by the rough track, something the ARTC conceded under questioning from National Senator Barnaby Joyce.
Now, we've even had reports of the passenger trains that have shifted so violently that the emergency air brakes have gone off. You agree with that?
Well, that did happen. Again, it goes back to some problems we had late last year, which I think are being well communicated.
But such problems on the Intercapital Railway line seem unlikely to go away any time soon.
It's a pretty big job and a reasonably expensive job. It's much easier to do when you do an upgrade in the first place